This video is a film study look at the Lamar Jackson versus Pittsburgh Steelers dynamic. I think I've got 12 plays queued up here from Sunday's loss, 27-22. Of course, it's disappointing. Another matchup between these two teams where we as Ravens fans leave the game thinking we could very easily beat that team if we didn't make these mistakes, if we could pass pro consistently, if certain passes were out a little bit sooner or on time, if these guys, Rashad Bateman, Zay Flowers, and others, actually make important catches when Lamar Jackson puts the ball directly in their hands. And of course, if the referees don't overturn what we all think is a touchdown, a go-ahead touchdown, in fact, delivered by Lamar Jackson. Nonetheless, you have to give the Steelers a lot of credit, or at least I'm willing to, with how they're able to change the looks, but do so more and more as the game progresses. There's almost this dynamic of them kind of lulling us to sleep a little bit. I mean, our offensive line, our coaches, and maybe even Lamar. First play of the game for the Ravens, I think we should probably keep their base defense on the field as much as possible, specifically when the ball is on the right hash. And so what I mean is motion into the boundary. When the ball is on the right hash, if they have their base defensive structure on the field, it will force or possibly elicit a rotation from a too-high safety structure. If you had two safeties and one of them spinning down and the other guy's rolling back, that kind of gives us some intel. We've already got that intel here. It's a one-high safety look with Ramsey in the middle of the field, and I believe that is Pepper's number 40 set to the field because it was originally a bunch formation. Easy route for Lamar to access. Porter is off, playing off coverage. 12 personnel is going to keep their base defense on the field, at least for most of the iteration. Sometimes on 3rd and 8, when we went 12 personnel, of course they're going to be in their nickel. And in my opinion, it gives us an opportunity to kind of force them to drop TJ Watt out into the flats. Just one of a couple of suggestions that I would have for ways to possibly attack them. Of course, this is them early in the game being a little bit less aggressive than we saw, especially on third downs, second, third, and even into the fourth quarter. Still on our first possession, it's a 3rd and 7. This is going to be a beautiful throw from Lamar Jackson to Zay Flowers, who's going in motion across the field. So you've got Andrews, Likely, and Flowers down here to the read side where Lamar is going to look first. If this throw is off at all, it's maybe 4 inches too far. This is a pretty good pocket to throw from on 3rd down. I think early in games, sometimes the Steelers kind of bring less pressure to lull us to sleep, and then they kind of adapt. But here, this is a stunt that they brought multiple times, whereby one inside linebacker is going to occupy the running back. In this case, it's Ali. And then part and parcel to that, Queen is looping all the way around late because the running back has been occupied. They think they're going to be able to get him through that pass lane. Lamar is getting the ball all out quick. It's basically man-free, except you don't have a low-hole dropper or a spy. It's a beautiful throw that I think just illustrates, look, if Lamar Jackson has time and he's got routes to access, he'll be able to throw the football against this team or anyone. I think we've got a more healthy version of Lamar than we probably have had for most of the year. Of course, this one questionable upon review. And fortunately, we're able to have the catch stand. It goes for 31 yards. We did have to settle for a field goal on the drive because of this play. So this is one of our answers for man coverage, especially down like inside the 30, maybe the high red zone up to the plus 30. It's essentially a slot fade against man coverage. Bateman just running a little checkup route stop, if you want to call it, against James Pierre. And then Flowers on this fade. Either this ball is poorly thrown by Lamar or he's trying to underthrow it intentionally. We do have a nice throwing platform for a couple of reasons. Number one, we are chipping on the right side to help Rosengarten. I believe that's against Watt. And then Linderbaum and Falele are working on the defensive tackle. When you get the end zone angle, see, it's a pretty good rep from Voorhees. I don't think he played, really fantastic. But is Lamar trying to underthrow this one intentionally? It's possible. I'm not sure that Zay Flowers is a underthrow guy who's going to come back and get the football. Maybe he has these catches in college or something like that. I just don't remember them at the NFL level really at all. In my opinion, Flowers has got a step, and it's a low percentage play in my opinion anyway because of the matchup, and I don't think we are really great at the slot fade in the last couple of years. I'd be interested, to what our percentage is on those concepts. This kind of, to me, is a little bit of a cop-out from an offensive standpoint. And what I mean by that is this almost kind of reminds me of ISO basketball. I don't mean from Lamar. I mean from this being one of our default options against man coverage in these situations. Likening it to basketball, certain NBA teams, and I hate it, to be honest with you, they just hunt matchups. Pick and roll, pick and roll, pick and roll until their best player gets a favorable matchup because teams have switched. Here, to me, this just looks like, hey, our best player is going to come down the court, and we're just going to ISO completely. He's going to take him, possibly a loss in efficiency there. Hopefully the analogy makes sense to you guys. The pocket is good. I'd like to see some more of a move from Flowers, a route that actually gives him an opportunity to, quote, win with his agility and change of direction skills. Watt is getting double-teamed off our right side, the left-hand side of the screen here. Pretty good rep, if you ask me, from Voorhees, who did have, I think, 3 or 4 really bad losses or times where he just got overpowered, kind of tossed to the side. Him and Falele, it's, pretty obvious at this point. We've reached our breaking point, and I think some of the players have as well. Lamar, Henry, and those guys have handled it with tremendous class, this situation so far in 2025. So there's the throw. I think it's pretty obvious that, we could access this better as Zay Flowers if it's thrown more towards the back of the end zone, but the trajectory and the pace that's needed there could change the could lower the percentage, in fact, of it being completed and Zay Flowers, getting his foot in the end zone. I think this throw is low and behind him, but I recognize that others will interpret it as Lamar intentionally underthrowing him. Trying to keep as much of this on the Lamar evaluation as possible, but also keeping in mind that the Steelers impact his game, his effectiveness, through our offensive line, number one, but also the way that they kind of dictate to us at times what's going to be available at a time of their choosing. I will say this, at the end of that play, I'm not a big fan of Zay Flowers' reaction at all. A little bit of emotional immaturity, if you ask me. We don't need you to signal that the throw needed to be further out in front of you. We're aware of that. So second possession, where it's a 3rd and 5, the Steelers have of course, pretty much wrecked us on their first possession, gone down, take a 7-3 lead. This is going to be the nickel blitz that just frustrates all of us. I talked about this in a video that I did Monday, which was called something like, how to lose to the Steelers version 8.6. Falele being unable to handle a nickel DB in a more physical fashion than this. There's nothing for us to discuss about whether or not he's going to develop suddenly for 2026. I hope that he plays fantastic the rest of the season and he goes somewhere and someone else signs him. If the Ravens use that as justification to keep him, we're just incredibly hard-headed and really operating down the wrong path. In any case, the nickel beats us on a blitz where they're dropping out one of the OLBs, Highsmith, and rushing the other. So you can see they're starting to plant those seeds of, I don't know if I want to say doubt, but where Lamar has to process what's happening. It's a 4-man rush. They're dropping out in zone coverage. I'm not going to show the all-22 angle, but you can see pretty clearly that it looks like a Tampa 2 with Wilson being the Mike linebacker running in the middle of the field. And then because the nickel DB beats our starting right guard, we don't have an opportunity to attack it. They did switch up coverages a lot, the Steelers. There's 3 different ways that really they kind of attacked us. So some man-free, typical man-free with a 4-man rush, but the low hole dropper is more so like a spy, almost like the Lions played it, where Queen would step up and be near to or even on the line of scrimmage, shortening the distance for Lamar, or shortening the distance, the path, for him to get to Lamar if Lamar tried to scramble. Heavy pressure, 7-man rushes, basically cover 0, forcing Lamar to recognize that and get the ball out quickly. And then finally, like what you just saw there, dropping out in zone, but bringing a differential blitz, in this case, the nickel DB set to the field. This play will be an opportunity to kind of illustrate what I just talked about. It's the 3rd possession, and it's a 3rd and 4. They're going to drop out into a cover 3. So both OLBs drop. Watt actually drops into the flats. Herbig, this is interesting. I'm not sure why they're doing this, but they're definitely starting to change the look on some of these 3rd downs and force Lamar to process things post-snap. So Peppers is moving to his side. I think that's 40. And when you get the all-22 angle, you'll see Peppers flies out into the flats. It's a drop 8 cover 3. So Herbig is basically the fourth add-on. You can see he doesn't really have a zone to cover. You've got Queen, hook to curl, 50, hook to curl. I think that's Malik before he got injured. And then Watt and Peppers are out in the flats. Once Lamar kind of breaks contain here, Herbig is the guy who's responsible for, quote, containing him, kind of forcing him back to the inside. That's why you can see Herbig take that outside, leverage there on Ronnie Stanley, force Lamar back to the inside. It's a zone, so no one else is stepping up. There's no spy. Lamar's able to scramble and create the first down. That's one of the reasons why, as the game develops, sometimes against the Steelers and other teams, you'll see teams bring more pressure as the game develops because they just, they don't want to allow him to do simple, easy stuff like this. Same play from the all-22 angle. Again, neither OLB is going to rush. Watt drops out into the flats down here. Herbig will kind of settle, and the only thing I can think is that's because Peppers is to his side. So Watt has the flats to the boundary with the ball on the right hash, and Herbig is the +1, the fourth add-on rusher, if you will, after the initial pass rush doesn't work. Cover 3, in my opinion, corner, free safety is Ramsey, and then corner to the bottom side, that's your 3 deep, and then there's your 4 underneath droppers. No one's open. There's nothing available for Lamar to access from a route standpoint. Another example, if you ask me, of us on a third down maybe expecting man, and then teams dropping out in zone and just no one being available at all. Again, I think because Peppers was to his side, that is what allowed Herbig to be the +1. Compare that to the way other teams did it. They would have that guy kind of in the middle of the field. In this case, it was an outside linebacker. So I think the Steelers are just building on some of the looks other teams have shown us throughout the year. The Lions really being the first one. The difference is they're doing this with a, quote, outside linebacker from a typical pre-snap alignment. You can hopefully start to see some of the patterns emerge or the 3 different ways that the Steelers tried to deal with Lamar on third downs. I think we have not used the option game enough. At times, third and 7, 3rd and 8 is not the time to use that. And when we did get the opportunity in the second half, we really did exploit at least one of their looks. So this is that same possession, third possession. In fact, it's a 3rd and 4, and they're going to go man-free, but it's with a spy. Incomplete pass is going to be Flowers moving across the middle. Initially, James Pierre is the guy in man on him, and then they're going to switch this. I believe that's taken over by Eccles, 26. So basically, they switch it. And Lamar might be a split second late getting this ball out to Flowers running across the middle of the field. In addition, Queen, in a normal man-free look, is going to be the low hole dropper. So, middle of the field, 6 to 10 yards deep with a middle of the field free safety. One or both of those guys just reading the quarterback's eyes. In this case, they've moved him up to the line. And I think that's a spy. That's not a low hole dropper at all. You can see Pierre has lagged off of Flowers. He basically switched it. You can see the signal that he's giving or communicating that to someone, we would assume verbally. And that allows the DB to run with Flowers. I think this ball's a tick late from Lamar, but he's trying to navigate, I think, 2 things. Whether Andrews is going to pop open late. So you got Flowers and then Andrews. And then in addition, probably whether or not Queen would play a factor in that throw to Andrews. So when we say that the ball is late, it's certainly not one of those stupid statements where people say Lamar Jackson can't process coverages. Like, that's something not even worth addressing. There are extenuating circumstances at times within a play that provide opportunities to say, hey, the defense did a nice job. I think Queen is in the window for this route from Andrews. Maybe if Andrews is able to work all the way across the field, Lamar could get the football to him. But it's tough to be able to sit here and say, hey, the Queen is in the lane, number 1. Number 2, 26 is a man on Flowers. We would presume he's not going to be able to come off and make a play on Andrews. The point is, I think we do have to give the Steelers credit for some of the things they did on defense. This ball, probably a 1/10 of a second late, in my opinion, because Lamar's waiting to see what develops with Mark Andrews. We'll just do the all-22 angle from this one. This is the interception on our 4th possession. Again, it's on 3rd and 5. So we had man free. on the previous third down. Prior to that, we had cover 3 with a 3+1 rush. Here again on the 4th possession, by the way, Pittsburgh pushed the lead to 10-3. They're going to drop out in what I believe is a cover 2, but they're making it look like 2-man pre-snap. I talked about this play in my video that I put out on Monday. Looks like man, pre-snap across the board, 2 high safety structure. No one plays 2-man against Lamar unless you use a spy. And that's kind of what happens here. So these are, routes that really do not present themselves as available against a cover 2. Andrews' release up to the top side, you can see he's kind of hesitating, and I think that's because we're anticipating man. We're thinking that we're going to get man, so Andrews is hesitating for a moment, and that is designed to pick the defender assigned to Isaiah Likely and allow Likely to run free, into the middle of the field. But Pittsburgh's not playing man. It's another example of a team dropping out into a zone on a third down. I don't want to say confusing us, but they've tricked us. This has been happening consistently on third downs, dropping to zone. Sometimes they bring pressure, right? The Jets really, I think, did a great job of it. You can see 2 high safety structure. Their route to Bateman, not available against that safety. I think it's Chuck Clark, who we really made look good on Sunday. Zay's route, bringing him directly back to this corner, Joey Porter Jr., and then Likely not open on the pick screen, whatever you want to call it. As a result, Lamar has to get out of there. Here is the spy, the defensive tackle who really slow played this. We're talking about 94 right here. He slow plays this intentionally. They're not really trying to get a sack with him at all. Hayward's just trying to drive the pocket back into Lamar's lap. These 2 OLBs getting upfield. This is straight out of the playbook that we saw the Detroit Lions use in Week 3. I would say they just ripped this from that game because they recognized that it had some impact. It's cover 2, zone would be the difference. It's not cover 2, it's not man. And Lamar scrambles out of there, tries to get this ball, to Ali over the top of James Pierre. It's a poor decision on third down, but we don't have a whole lot of options. The pass routes didn't give us opportunity to get rid of the ball at all early. Credit the Steelers one more time, dropping out in zone. Lamar makes a poor throw. We just have to be willing to admit that at this point. And Steelers go down, initially take a 13-3 lead, and then 17-3 after the penalty on Travis Jones, which apparently the NFL has since apologized for. To a certain extent, we've got to be harsh on Lamar because he's our best player, and we're paying him the biggest salary, obviously, for many years to come. Do we expect better? Yes. I think that we've got to put him and the offense in better situations, however, from an offensive line standpoint, and then occasionally from play calling. I'd like to see more of this. Under center, run game, under center, play action, especially from a one-back formation. So 1 running back in the backfield, no Pat Ricard on the field at this time, which maybe that's a giveaway. So on flow away, this is one of the reasons why you saw the outside linebackers for the Steelers crashing violently, chasing Derrick Henry, especially the guys on their left side of the defense or our right side, because they're gap exchanging it. So on flow, and I think it looks like to me Queen is reading the tackle/guard combo. If those guys work away from him, Queen is immediately gap exchanging it. Queen's eyes are not on the running back at all. Queen's visual is here, if you ask me. And so he's gap exchanging this with Herbig. Herbig is chasing Derrick Henry, the flow away, but he's also chasing, if you ask me, the fact that Rosengarten down blocks. So he's got great eyes. All these guys do. They're so well trained. And so as a result, Likely is supposed to pin down on Herbig, and that's why he's chasing him. And then you kind of lose perspective of him, but here's Queen in the gap exchange. So this is just a called gap exchange pre-snap for these guys, such that Queen then becomes the QB contained player. Herbig would chase Henry on the zone. Nice throw by Lamar, kind of off, the back foot a little bit. To Flowers out in the flats. I think it ends up being a 9-yard gain. One of the, many things that, or concepts, that I'd like to see us use would be A, under center run game, under center play action, specifically without Pat Ricard on the field. We need him for blocking at times, But we can't be so predictable that it's like if he's on the field, it's a run play, and if he's off the field, it's not. Now, actually, later in this video, I'll show you one where he's on the field, and we do exactly what I'm prescribing. Under center play action game with Ricard on the field as well. So the run action from Henry, look at all the reaction that you get, from these guys. It makes sense, except for Patrick Queen, who I accidentally circled there. More of this would be my suggestion. Basically, more traditional gameplay against the Steelers, trying to win the game 24-21, 21-17, or even 21-20. Just recognize the fact that they want to shorten the game. Maybe we should too. So there's Herbig chasing with the run action. You can see the horizontal flow or horizontal conflict that's created by the run action to the bottom side. They're in, what looks like man structure to me. Easy throw for Lamar to access. He can make these throws all day. For years, I've kind of called him like a Major League Baseball shortstop type guy. I know he didn't play baseball, but he's, got multiple throwing angles. And in this case, it's kind of like slide into his right and throwing the ball to first base on a line. Still on that same possession, it's actually an incomplete pass here. Heavy pressure by the Steelers compared to some of the other third downs that we've shown you, right? The cover 3 iteration, I think earlier in this possession, the man free that occurred, or perhaps fourth possession, my apologies, the man free that occurred, on the pass to Flowers that was a little bit late, and then the heavy pressure look. So fifth possession, 3rd and 8, like I said, it's going to be incomplete to Flowers. They're bringing all these guys. Well, they're bringing everybody except, I think that's the nickel DB there, Eccles. The routes, really the only ones that are available for him to access is Zay on kind of like this underneath drag, and then Andrews a little bit higher, so a levels concept if you want to call it that. I think this ball probably needs to be out a little bit quicker from Lamar, but again, there may be a defensive tackle who's kind of like in the window. We're talking about this route here to Zay, and these defensive tackles here. I'm really not going to give the end zone angle, not to obscure or hide anything, just because I got 12 plays to go through, and I know it's going to take me 30, 35 minutes to get that done. I think this ball could be out a little bit earlier. Lamar kind of pump fakes a little bit. It's heavy pressure, and I think you have to give credit to them. They lull us to sleep at times with some of their looks on third downs, and then you get in certain parts of the field. Maybe it's a high red zone thing. In any case, it's a penalty on Porter. Not pretty obvious hold, I think, it versus Hopkins. I think at some point, I'd like for us to have trained the offense, Monken, Lamar, whoever, on how to recognize these things, where historically the Steelers are running some of these high-pressure looks. It's not so simple to just say it's always in the high red zone or it's always on third down. You see from the plays that I'm presenting you, I've made sure that the down and distance is accurate. And in this case, you've just got another high pressure look that were we not to get a penalty, we're settling for a field goal here. Obviously, we did get a scramble from Lamar. I think 3 plays later, on a 3rd and goal from the 6 for a 9-yard touchdown. Unfortunately, or 6-yard touchdown. We missed the extra point, and we're down 17-9. Moving forward to the second half a little bit here, we're down 27-16, and this is a 3rd and 3 on the 7th possession. I think it's the second possession of the third quarter, in fact. And we go option here. Kind of a dual read look, and if it is, then likely possibly misreads this. It's a mug concept pre-snap from the Steelers with both inside linebackers walked up. That's what I mean when I say mug. Different names for it. People may want to call it simulated pressure. They're doing so many things, the Steelers, on third downs. Zone defense, heavy pressure look, cover 0, man free with a spy. They're doing so many things. I would classify them, I would simplify it, oversimplify it maybe as those 3 things. That the option game, I think, kind of presents an opportunity to overload their circuits. Meaning, on third down, how are they going to defend the option along with defending Lamar? Because I think that's not for the whole game, but on third downs, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, even this 3rd and 3, they generally are defending Lamar. In my opinion, this type of stuff could be there a little bit more often, not just on third down. Likely is, Watt is crashing, likely is theoretically reading that. So when I say he's crashing, Watt is going to tackle the running back. And what you will want is, inside linebacker gap exchange, and it kind of similar to what I drew up with Herbig and Queen, although that wasn't an option concept. This is into the boundary on a 3rd and 3. I'd like to see more option run at TJ Watt. If he's going to, specifically with the ball on the right hash, in my opinion, we would like to keep the ball on the right hash as much as possible against this team to either throw into the boundary and force TJ Watt to expand against their base look, or even if we go 11 personnel or 12 that elicits a nickel, like on 3rd and 3, run the option into the boundary to the right. Very simplistic observations by me, but these are things I think have been somewhat underutilized in 2025, rightfully so, right? Because Lamar has been injured, but we have a lot of film of the Steelers struggling with option concepts throughout the years, and in this case, one from Sunday. Another under center play action on the same possession, in fact, in the 3rd quarter, and it's going to be complete to Bateman. Mirrored routes between Bateman and Flowers. These are actually not drawn to the depth that the run, have only got so much screen to utilize. But Ricard's on the field, and so we're using him as part of the pass pro, split zone type look across the heels of the offensive line to help pass pro on the right along with Likely. So Likely is motioning down, and then he'll deal with the edge defender first, and then Ricard peels over second. So we're kind of functionally double teaming that edge defender. I believe we thought it would possibly be TJ Watt. It ends up actually being Nick Herbig because of a substitution pattern. But in any case, Lamar's looking to the downside originally. I think he's looking down here originally, although right now his helmet looks like it's checking out Bateman. But as I've got this paused, Ramsey is sitting in the window of this route. And I'm not saying he knows it's coming, but he just happens to be underneath this route by Zay Flowers. So, of course, we're not going to throw that. Lamar, with time, with space, is going to quickly get through his reads, deliver an accurate football. This is why I would say I would like to see more under center play action. Not that it's going to work 70% of the time against the Steelers. They may be more prepared for it if we start utilizing it, if we start spamming it, right? But because it puts Lamar in a favorable position with time and space to evaluate what's happening, minimal options, right? 1, 2, 3, the running back late, and then 4 likely out in the flats. I like the utilization of personnel here. Andrews happens to be off the field, but Likely as a guy who catches the ball late, it seems as if when Likely catches the ball later in reads or later in plays, that he almost can kind of attack seams or openings in the defense that weren't there 1.5 or 1.8 seconds ago. Forgive me if that's a really poor explanation, but I like the utilization of personnel with Likely and Ricard being on the field, along with 2 wide receivers. Cheap shit by Patrick Queen, which he specializes in. At this point, basically waiting for Bateman to make some kind of move so he can knock the ball out after an 18-yard gain. Essentially, what I'm advocating for is more under center play action, which means, by definition, we have to run more under center run plays, whether it's Derrick Henry, Keaton Mitchell, if he's okay, or Rasheen Ali, but as well as option stuff from the gun. This is, once we get late in the game, the drive to potentially take the lead, and I will show the throw to Isaiah Likely that was ruled incomplete. I won't argue that it should be a touchdown at this point. You guys know my feelings on it. 4th and 5, nickel blitz. Lamar sees it. The line to gain is the positive 49, so just on the other side of the 50. And they're asking Ramsey to go basically deal with Flowers out on the edge on this, pretty much a little outcut. Great job by Linderbaum dealing with the nickel defender. He basically plants him into the ground in a violent fashion, which, it's what you want to see when you punish nickel blitzes. It's a glitch blitz, really. Watch these 2 defensive tackles step to the offensive line, and then retreat. This is what we patented, really, I guess, like 2003 with Mike McDonald. It was so effective. So many teams have copycatted it and utilized it at this point. In this case, Steelers are using it against us. Great job on Linderbaum, like I said, of KOing this nickel DB. Zay catches it, and Ramsey is there. Really, pretty quickly, if you ask me, given his original alignment. But Lamar recognized it quickly enough, able to get it out to Zay, and we keep the drive alive. Last play that I'll show you, in fact, I'm not going to deal with the shit show of the 3rd and 2 after this touchdown was overruled. I think we should be under center, and I think we should be going play action on some of those 3rd and 2s or handing the ball off. I reckon, or running option stuff from out of the gun. In any case, this is the play that I'll use to kind of illustrate why I think we need to be more traditional to win this matchup. The Steelers, are in a goal line look. 2 OLBs, happens to be Herbig and Watt, 4 interior defensive tackles. And we're going to go play action to there's 2 guys running routes here. The second of which is Isaiah Likely, right? So Lamar under center, boom. You can see the footwork, clean, quick, efficient. Gets him an opportunity to quickly identify a route. I'm not saying we should simplify the game for Lamar. I'm saying we should remove as many of their options as possible when we have the ability to do so. 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, maybe even 2nd and 7 at times. Under center play action, being committed to it, gives us an opportunity, be more traditional, hopefully avoid some negative yardage plays. First read is Kolar, moving across, left to right for us, but right to left for Lamar. And he moves off of that quickly. Ramsey is tracking him. You guys got Ramsey's helmet and upper body, right here. But there's also a DB off screen down here that you guys can't see. I'm not showing you the all-22 angle. I just wanted to be able to look at Lamar, under center play action stuff, which is what I'm advocating for, even on some 3rd and 2s. Clean, efficient play. I'm not into, at this point, discussing the whole thing about, whether it's a touchdown or not. You guys know my thoughts on it haven't changed whatsoever, despite what, some of the idiots in charge of the NFL, would have us believe. Lamar finished 19 of 35, so not great throwing the football. Only 219 yards. You had the drop by Bateman, at least one drop by Flowers. The ball to Andrews that may or may not have been intended for DeAndre Hopkins. It certainly looks like it is to me. We threw a go-ahead touchdown there to Isaiah Likely to put us ahead. Lamar does enough to win, in my opinion, against the Steelers. We just have to avoid turnovers. The 1 interception, costly. As poor as he played against the Bengals at times, it can be tough to evaluate. You get some good plays, even against Cincinnati. The touchdown pass to Zay Flowers, which was just a regular push-off that we see every week and every game, in fact, utilized against us. The touchdown to Likely, poor ball security. Sometimes some things are a touch late, to be honest with you. But the Steelers play a factor there. Some of their defensive tackles are 6'3", 6'4", having their hands up, getting themselves in the window. I think that in the rematch, if we're fortunate enough for it to matter, it would be great if it does. It'd be really cool if you come down, even if it's only to go 9-8, which it looks like is a real possibility. Avoid negative yardage plays. Make the Steelers defend the formation and the concept, not Lamar. That's why I like the under center play action and under center run game so much, and the option. They have to defend the formation and the concept. And in my opinion, it's not that they don't respect Derrick Henry. Of course they do. In my opinion, most of their defensive game planning, most of what they offer us, is defending Lamar Jackson. They do a pretty good job of it. We did run for 217 yards. Henry was a monster in terms of handling a ton of contact. He even delivered a huge blow on Malik Harrison. Hopefully he's okay. I think Henry was 25 carries for 94 yards. We can do better than that if our offensive line will actually block someone. I think it's obviously time to rotate some guys on the offensive line and actually create some competition. We should have done that weeks, months, or even a year ago. Lamar added 7 carries for 43 yards, and then Mitchell has the 56-yarder where he hurt his knee. Hopefully he's okay as well. It's crazy to see him get caught, right? I'm advocating for a more traditional game to try to beat the Steelers. With this team that we have, lessen their ability, minimize their ability to defend Lamar specifically. Would I love to spread them out and throw the ball and exploit their coverage guys, who I do not think are great? You got Chuck Clark back there, who he made look great. They released Slay and got some other guys playing corner when they moved Ramsey to safety. They're a tough team, man. You have to give them credit. They executed a multitude of coverages. At certain times, they threw off our timing. They made Lamar have to process what was happening post-snap and maybe hold on to the ball a little bit longer. It's all related. I'm advocating and pushing for a more traditional football game against them in the 2025 rematch, if it matters. If it doesn't matter, then we shouldn't be playing Lamar anyway. In my opinion, if it does matter, we should run 8 to 10 option concepts. 8 to 10, maybe not 8 to 10 under center play action, but 5 to 6 to 7. We could do more to get them on their heels, create horizontal conflict so they're defending and not attacking. These are probably simplistic answers here. Basically, I don't think Lamar Jackson is the problem. Do I think he could have played better? Yes. You had the Flowers throw on the slot fade. I'm willing to stand here and say to you that I think it's underthrown. I'm not scared that you won't watch my videos. I really don't care. To be honest with you, I'm going to tell you what I think. A couple of somewhat late throws across the middle against pressure. To me, our offensive line limits our play calling and is really probably 70 to 80% of our issues, in that we cannot attack with the diversity of the entire Todd Monken playbook for whatever reason. I think we need to recognize that. It seemed like we started to recently and then have gone away from it a little bit the last 2 games against the Bengals and the Steelers. We did so at times on Sunday, and I thought to good effect. The under center play action I wanted to stress here. Lamar can execute that if he's given time, and it seems a lot easier for our offensive line to handle those types of concepts, those types of steps and techniques than it is out of the gun. In any case, another 30-minute plus video from me. At this point, I don't know how to produce something any shorter, so my apologies for that if you guys didn't enjoy it. You're probably not listening at this point for real. Do I believe we can beat the Steelers? Yes, but we find ourselves saying that after every one of these losses that's 27-24, 24-21, or in this case, 27-22. The reality is, to me, my opinion, we have to recognize that for us to beat them, we're pretty much going to have to beat them at their own game. Play a traditional style. Shorten the game. Be willing to win 21-17, 21-20, or 24-21, as long as we, A, don't turn the football over, or B, figure out a way on defense not to give up big plays as well. In any case, I appreciate you guys' time, man. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, and please consider sharing a link to this video out on social media as well if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy my thoughts and the plays that I use to illustrate them.